Alright, hello everybody, how's it going? Welcome to Comic Book Radio. I'm your host, Peter Cimetti. This is episode 201. Tonight my guest is Ryan DROST. We're going to be talking about the evolution of all ages storytelling. He's got a book out also on Kickstarter right now called Stealth Hammer. If you guys want to check that out, the link is in the description of the show. He's on issue 3, and that's currently funding, again, on Kickstarter. 5 days to go the last time I checked, and he's very close to his goal. Alright, so before I get started, I want to just say hello to you guys. It looks like we got just one person waiting in here tonight. Very unusual. Wonder what's going on. YouTube has been kind of weird the past couple of weeks. I don't know if people are getting their notifications. I know people have been getting unsubscribed. Make sure you are subscribed if you want to be subscribed. We got Ben here. What's up, Ben? Thank you for being here. It says, greetings, programs. Are you okay, Ben? Who you talking to, Ben? TJ Rex, what's up, TJ? Hope you're doing well. Is this has to probably be some kind of autocorrect thing. Unless, is that what the kids are saying nowadays? Programs? Is that what we are? Maybe. Some could argue, yes. Spicer McLeroy, what's up, Spicer? Hope you're doing well. Thank you so much, man. And it's going to be a good show. We're going to have a good conversation. All right. So before I bring Ryan on, two things. King Cryptid beanies are in. They got in today. So they're going to start shipping out if that was the only thing you ordered on the King Cryptid campaign. Otherwise, if you did order a beanie, but you've got like a pending order because stuff is going to ship out, the next thing that you're going to get when your order ships out is going to be this. So you're going to get it early. That was a Moon special on the King Cryptid campaign. If you did want to get one, though, because they're not available anymore, you still can if you get the Super Moon bundle on the campaign or the King Size campaign subscription bundle. Otherwise, you got to wait a few months. Then we'll make them available for everybody to purchase. Also, the second thing before I get started, tomorrow I'm not going to be on this channel. I'm going to be on the Alterna Comics channel. We're going to be doing a launch stream for a Second Chance campaign on Indiegogo for David Lucarelli. He's got his Tinseltown Volume 2 graphic novel launching tomorrow. I think he's got a bunch of copies left, but he wants to offer it on Indiegogo. He previously, about a year ago, offered it on Kickstarter. And also we're going to be talking about Blood Moon, the King Cryptid Blood Realm crossover, the upcoming summer apparel campaign with beach towels and t-shirts, and then also we're going to be closing out the Hall of Fame 2024 books tomorrow. They were previously closing out April 30th, but there was too much going on at that point in time, so tomorrow will be the last day to get those. Blood Realm is sold out. It's gone. There's only 7 left of Red Koi #1, and there's only 11 of Tinseltown and 13 of Trespasser. So if you want to get those, they're very limited. We only are making 50 of each to sell. Make sure to get that at alternacomics.com/pre-order. What's up, Ben? Says it's from Tron. Okay. Had me worried there, Ben. I thought the board got you. All right, so let's bring on Ryan, the man of the hour. Give him a big Comic Book Radio welcome. Mr. Ryan DROST. What's up, Ryan?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
I was actually thinking Ben was implying we were like in the Matrix or something like that. So
yeah, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know if he got took over by the AI or something or what. But I'm glad that he's okay and he's still human, Ben Spar.
As far as we know, yeah. He's just trying to assimilate all of us. That's all it is.
Yeah, sure. Why not become friendly and then get you?
Right, exactly.
That's how it works.
I gotta tell you too, your the intro to your show just brings so much nostalgia back for me. It's fantastic. So
yeah, you're digging it.
Oh yeah, I grew up in the '80s, so it's just like that's just wave of nostalgia over and over again for me.
Yeah, and you talk about that kind of stuff a lot in terms of the shows, the pop culture from the 80s. What brought that about? Because for those that don't know, Ryan, you got a podcast called Star Joes.
Yeah.
And it's like, a combination of Star Wars, G.I. Joe, but you talk about a whole lot of stuff. So what brought that about?
Yeah, that was just because I was listening to podcasts, and a buddy of mine's he's like, I think we could do a podcast. I was like, yeah, I think we could. And then it's like one of those things where it's like, okay, what does it take to actually do it? And then we looked into it, and but yeah, I mean, I was 5 years old when the 80s started, and I was 15 when the 80s ended. So like I was prime candidate for all those properties when they came out. And yeah, so it was like, okay, well, what are we going to talk about? I was like, everything I grew up with. Let's just the movies, the toys, the comics, all that stuff. And we've been doing it for 14 years now.
Wow, so, congrats.
Yeah, thanks. That's just pure stubbornness of not wanting to stop.
Man, oh man. So do you guys have, where is the podcast played?
You can just look up starjoes.com, and it's through Podbean. So it's just it's just an audio one. I tried doing the YouTube thing, and I can attest for anyone that doesn't know, it can be very time consuming to do both audio and video, or even just doing just video. So I was like, I want to do other things, so I want to keep doing the audio. I was doing it for a long time, so I just kind of let the YouTube thing go to more seasoned professionals like yourself.
Well, I tried doing the edited video thing, and
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm going to leave that to the professionals,
Yeah.
because I feel like I go in there and, I'm like, okay, a 10-minute video.
Yep.
5 hours later, and I hate the thing. And I'm like, I should have just went on and just talk about this live. Would have
That's
been done within
exactly
a
it.
half hour, and who
Yes.
cares? Let it be.
Yep. Oh yeah, that's the part that killed me. I would spend 4 hours just to have like maybe a 7-minute video. I'm like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, so I hear you with that. What was the most, I guess you could say, influential piece of pop culture from that time period for you?
Well, for me it was Star Wars. Star Wars is not like, there's Star Wars and then there's everything else. So like my dad, I found out recently, took me to go see a re-release of A New Hope in 1979. I always thought I went to go see Empire Strikes Back when I was a kid. I thought that was the first movie. And like around my 40th birthday, my parents, we were talking and everything else. And I said, yeah, I remember like the guy was dressed up in like Darth Vader. There was people there dressed up as Darth Vader and stormtroopers and stuff like that. My dad's like, that wasn't Empire Strikes Back. I took you to go see A New Hope. It was a re-release in 79 because I was too young when it came out in 77. He's like, that was the year right before Empire came out. So I've actually seen all of the movies in the theaters, like from the very first one. So
wow, man.
So it's just a nice fond memory to have stuff like that. So yeah, and he said he knew I was a fan the second I sat in the chair. I'm like maybe 3.5, almost 4 years old, and I'm just like, and that was it. Like he's just like, yeah, he's a fan. He's gonna love this.
Well, if it doesn't hook you in from the long time ago intro, it definitely hooks you at that opening fanfare.
Oh yeah, but then after that, it was G.I. Joe came out, and they had the articulated figures compared to the Kenner ones for Star Wars, and then Transformers came out, and that, I think the great thing with Transformers as a kid was your parents didn't understand them. They're just like, how do we change this? I don't get how do you? And I would just take it and switch it in like seconds, and they're like, I don't get how he did that. So
it's like, let's take the Rubik's Cube and make it into an action figure.
Right.
What could go wrong?
Right. And as a kid, you just almost instinctively knew how to do it. And like, I've gotten Transformers like as an adult now, and I'm like, I can't do this without the instructions. There's something to the child's mind that tells you how to do it instinctively. So
yeah. I mean, I think I didn't have the original releases, but I had ones later on, because the originals, weren't they metal?
Yeah, there was always at least one piece of metal. It was usually like the torso piece or something like that, but there was always at least one piece that was like just that die-cast metal.
Yeah, man, those were great.
Yeah, absolutely loved it.
So, for your storytelling,
yeah,
what has influenced you the most? Is it still Star Wars?
It was a lot of those 80s properties. I mean, I grew up, so it's like some of my heroes were like Jim Henson and stuff like that, because I grew up with The Muppet Show and Dark Crystal and Labyrinth and things like that. So that was totally an influence. But like, I grew up on a main road. There was no go play in the street with the kids or any other kids in the neighborhood or anything like that. It was like, you had your toys in your room and you take them out in the backyard and play and stuff like that. And that was it. And so I would actually like mingle the toys together. So I'd have like G.I. Joe creating the Autobots to help battle against Cobra, who was...
Oh, so you were doing crossovers before.
I was doing crossovers way before. Yeah, exactly. And then it would be like, okay, and then they uncovered this ancient rune, and that was Castle Grayskull. So yeah, I was doing all that type of stuff as a kid. So I, like, looking back on it, I was like, man, I was always a storyteller. I was always like doing these like different creations going on. And then like, I think most kids back then, it was like, you gave me a stick and put me in the backyard, and that was like, you know, that stick became your gun, it became your lightsaber, it became whatever you needed it to be. It was your crutch if you got wounded from the imaginary enemies that you were fighting and stuff like that. So, and then we had a wooded area across the street, and I would like hike in those woods, and you know, like, you hope you find something. Like, you know, we found like a destroyed house that had like looked like it burned down like years and years ago, and it's like,
oh
so,
wow.
So then you have like ghost stories that go through your head and things like that. So yeah, so even at a young age, just experiencing life and playing with toys and everything else really inspired a lot of the...
Man, well, I think we found the inspiration for Sid from Toy Story.
Yeah, exactly, right there.
What's up, Hidden Hand?
That's fantastic. I did know people that would switch parts out like that, even as kids and stuff. But
they're interchangeable?
They weren't. They were not. But people would like stretch them out and figure out how to... I was like, I'm gonna break it. I'm not gonna try. Like, there was no... The only thing I did do later on is I did take one of my Transformers and like unscrew everything because I wanted to learn how it worked, and could not figure out how to put it back together.
Oh man.
It's like reverse engineering gone wrong. So
the worst for me was heads would pop off of figures a lot of the time, and they'd have like that joint, that ball joint at the top, and sometimes if it wasn't like a squishy enough kind of head model, it would be impossible.
Oh yeah. One of the cool things that my dad did for me was I was one of the fortunate kids that got the USS Flag for G.I. Joe when I was a kid. It was like this 7-foot aircraft carrier, and he was disappointed because he didn't realize it couldn't move. It was just a stationary playset. So he mounted it onto a board and put dolly wheels underneath it, so I could actually wheel this huge 7-foot aircraft carrier around. So it was pretty sweet.
Holy smokes, man! Jeez. Wow, man. So, looking back for you at the evolution of all ages storytelling, especially in pop culture. Now, I want to talk about movies, comics, shows, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
What have you noticed in terms of any kind of changes? Because there's been a lot of changes, but what have you noticed?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is the sensitivity to what is all ages and what isn't. Because like I said, I was mentioning some stuff I watched as a kid, like Dark Crystal. If you watch that movie,
it's intense.
It lives up to the name Dark. I mean, it's there's some creepy characters. I mean, there wasn't blood, guts, or anything like that, but there was stuff that would give you nightmares back then. I mean, you Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory with the boat scene. It was just like that. You know, chickens' heads were getting cut off in the background of that and everything. Like, there was some intense stuff going on back then, and I think. I do think there's been more of a sensitivity, and in some ways that's good. In some ways, I think it's not as good. Like, I think it's good because it's like some of that stuff was traumatic for us as kids, but then in some ways it's like, well, maybe that was good that we kind of experienced some of that darker stuff. So it, I don't know, maybe toughened us up a little bit. But
yeah. Well, I mean, if you really go back, children's storytelling was usually pretty dark.
Oh yeah,
Because these were like cautionary tales for kids, so
yeah.
you wanted to scare the bejesus out of them.
Grim fairy tales and stuff like that. But like,
Yeah.
you're not when you're reading the original Cinderella. It's not the Disney version. This is like some dark stuff going on in those.
Yeah,
stories.
there's a lot of dark, tragic elements. It's
Yeah.
very gothic, and then when it's not in that kind of time period, and you go back even further, and you're talking about like fables and folklore and
Yeah.
mythology and all these other types of things too. Like,
Yeah.
there's very, very intense stuff going on.
Yeah,
that-
well, one of the characters that I took inspiration from, because I do in my story, I pull from mythologies from across the globe and stuff like that. And one of the characters I pulled from was Baba Yaga. And the original stories of Baba Yaga, I mean, she lives in this chicken house and she's got a fence around it that are like human bones and everything. And like she lures kids in. And sometimes she's a good, sometimes she's a good character and does things to help children, and sometimes she's not so good, and it's a very dark tale.
Yeah, man. So it's interesting that we keep on, and I hate to say like kiddying it up or doing something like that when it revolves around stuff that's aimed at kids.
Sure.
But I think we keep on handling it in a way that feels like we are downplaying themes way too much. Because if anything, storytelling is great for having these metaphors throughout
Oh yeah.
that help you to deal with things in real life. And
Yeah.
if we keep downplaying good and evil and dark themes and intense stuff and just let the kids, because kids will rise to the occasion more often than not.
Absolutely.
But if we never give them that bar,
Yeah.
they'll just stay down there.
Yeah, I just did a presentation at my local library just yesterday about creating comics and everything, and there was little kids there, and I did a little workshop of like how to create a character, and I was asking for like superpowers and stuff like that, and this one kid said, I said, what would you want the character's superpower to be? And he was like, telekinesis, and I was like, oh, nice big word, and this was like a 6-year-old or 7-year-old.
Nice.
And I says, well, do you want to tell everyone what telekinesis means? And he says, yeah, it's the ability to move things without actually physically touching them. And I was like, that's a better explanation than I would have given. I would just would have said you can move stuff with your mind. Like, I would just simplified it. So they are very intelligent and they absorb this stuff. And like, to your point,
Yeah.
like they learn the good and evil just like we all did. And like they learn how to make those choices and everything else. And that was like my goal for my comic was I wanted to tell that type of story where it didn't like talk down to a kid. I didn't want it to be something, because like they can absorb that way more than we give them credit for. So I mean, we all did. It was like you said, I grew up with all these themes and everything else, and if anything, they taught me like great to like you were talking about, great moral lessons and doing right versus wrong, and where doing wrong can take you and things like that. So
Yeah, and it's funny too, because when you're a kid, you don't want the things that are aimed at kids overtly.
no,
You know,
not
you're
at
like,
all.
oh, that's baby stuff. You know, you're like 7 years old, being like, that's for babies.
Right. Well, and especially if you have older siblings. Like I was the
Yeah.
oldest in my family, but I know people that had older siblings and stuff like that, and I know with my sister too, like my younger sister. Like she didn't want to do the kiddie things because her older brother didn't have to do the kiddie things. So like I don't want to read this or do that because Ryan doesn't have to do those things. So yeah, I mean, like I said, especially if you have older siblings, you want to do the more grown up things because they're allowed to do the more grown up things. And if you're doing it right, if you're doing good storytelling right, it's still okay to give that. I mean, I think about like the difference between you were talking about the evolution of stuff. I think of the difference between like say a title like Spider-Man in the 80s versus Spider-Man now. Like I would give a Spider-Man comic from the 80s to anyone of any age to read and enjoy. I'd want to read Spider-Man today before I would hand it to a kid, because there's definitely some themes going on in some of those that are not meant for an all ages audience anymore. So
Yeah, and that's kind of the ironic thing.
yeah,
Is because you either get stuff, there's like no middle for the most part. Not with a
No.
lot of stuff anyway, especially when
No.
it comes to mainstream offerings. But it's either stuff that is really just watered down, brain mushing, drivel, junk food for the mind. And then there's stuff that you would think should be accessible for all ages, but there's stuff in there that you're just like, what? I don't even want to dive into this.
Right, exactly. But yeah, it's just one of those things. Like I said, if you look back at some of the things that have been done in the past that really pull from, and this is a good example. We were talking about Star Wars earlier. Like if you look at what George Lucas did when he was creating the story, he was pulling from common themes. He wasn't telling anything new. He was just telling it in a different way than we've seen before. But he was pulling like the hero's quest, and he was bringing in themes of wizards and little sidekick characters and stuff like. All of like the imp character, that's Yoda. Like he wasn't reinventing the wheel. He was pulling from these classic themes that taught life lessons and just did it in a different way than it's been done before. That was something I also mentioned when I did my presentation yesterday. I said, there's no story that hasn't been done. Like when people say, "Oh, I want a unique story," there's no such thing as a unique story. There's a unique way of telling a story, but there's no unique stories anymore. Everything's been done, but it's how you tell those stories. And if you're still pulling from those themes of like in an all ages environment of like these classic themes, and you do it in your own way, I've seen people do some amazing things with just like taking literally a classic story and telling it a different way, and it still holds those themes, it still holds those lessons and everything else, and you can still give it to anyone of any age to read it.
Yeah, I think when the emphasis is too much on originality of trying to say, all right, let's do something that no one's ever seen before,
yeah,
you soon discover why no one really ever did that before.
Exactly.
Because it makes no sense to no one.
Exactly.
Going back to Star Wars, I've seen some people to explain maybe character or plot hole type things, being like, well, who knows how they would behave? These are alien races. It's like, well, it's not being played for another planet. It's being played for here.
For us, right.
So they're going to have a unifying humanity among all of them.
Right. Well, and going back to another 80s property, I apologize if anyone's a fan of these movies, but the reason for me that the Michael Bay Transformers movies didn't work was because he was making them too alien. He was making them too, like, they didn't have most of them didn't have personalities. They just got too complex. I mean, the story was not that great either, but it was like the big thing for me with Transformers, I know I'm reading a good Transformers story when the characters feel like actual characters, when they feel like they have a personality. I get that they're alien robot life beings from another planet, but I'm a human being reading it. You should make them all have their personalities and interact with each other like I'm used to people interacting with each other. They're just happen to be different forms. That's all it is.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of that, I'm seeing the trailer. I saw that trailer for the new upcoming Transformers thing. I have nothing positive to say about it, so I'm not going to dive into that. But I feel like they're going way in the extreme now of like, okay, that's too much personality.
Yeah. Now, one of the things I did hear, because I'm curious about it, I did hear someone say like, oh, there are some more serious tones and everything else. I said, then they should have showed a little bit of that in the trailer, because they didn't. They went very comedic in the trailer. But I also chalked that up to, like, well, maybe that's just not the version for me. I got an awesome Netflix version that was done. I thought that was done really well with the CG animation and everything else, and that was like more the Transformers I grew up with. So I was like, okay, we're going in a different direction. And I like the fact that they're trying something. I just hope the end result is good.
I want to know why they didn't just go that scene on Cybertron in the Bumblebee movie.
Right.
Why don't we just make that a movie?
I agree.
That should, why is that difficult?
Yeah, I agree 100%. If you're already going to go in that in-depth CG animation, do that scene, because that was the scene everybody was
incredible
talking about. Yeah, absolutely. And that was the thing. Like, I liked the Bumblebee movie, but the thing that the Bumblebee movie did is it told a well-told story with a lot of heart to the characters. There was like actual like compassion going on and things going on that reminded me of the stuff I grew up with. And but yeah, that opening scene was just incredible. I was like, this is, I want a whole movie of this.
Yeah, absolutely. But who knows what's going on in the minds and wallets of Hollywood half the time.
Right. Well, a lot of times,
we'll see.
A lot of times, as we know, it's not the creative people that are actually making some of those decisions. It's the people that have the money and everything.
Sometimes it's like they present that film that would have basically been that, that opening scene of Bumblebee, but a whole movie.
Yeah.
And then it goes through the studio system and it comes out with whatever it turns into.
Right.
And you're like, all right,
Yeah.
okay, that's what happened.
Okay. And then when it flops, you'll
Yeah,
wonder
it's like
why.
10 rewrites later.
Right.
You know, it barely resembles what you originally put through.
And also
I mean,
6
that
different
happens all the
writers on it
time.
too.
Yeah. Yeah, whenever I see a movie and it's got more than 3,
I agree.
I'm like, oh, this is gonna be bad.
I can't think of an example, but there was a movie I remember where there was like 6 different writers on it, and I was so nervous because of that, and it actually was pretty decent. I cannot remember it to save my life right now, but that is not the norm. Like you said, normally it's like you have that many writers on it. This is not going to be a good thing.
Yeah.
And if you have more than one director on it, it's also not a good thing. As soon as I hear this movie has changed directors, I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, if the between the directors, the people who made the story, and then the people who wrote and adapted the story, if they could play, a football game,
yeah.
it's going to be pretty rough.
Exactly.
Let's see. Rachel says Michael Bay made GoBot movies and not Transformers to me.
I 100% agree with you.
That's an interesting assessment. Yeah.
I feel very bad for Peter Cullen, the voice of Optimus Prime, having done those movies, because I'm like, he deserved better.
Oh, and that was a miss too. I love Hugo Weaving, but I mean, you wouldn't know that he was Megatron if someone didn't tell you. And then even when they tell you, you're like, you sure?
Yeah, exactly.
Because they do whatever they did to his voice. It's like, you should just get Frank Welker in there to do Megatron and do the whole thing.
He's still around, so yeah, why not?
Yeah.
But yeah, and I agree with you. Like, I love Hugo Weaving, and his voice would have been perfectly fine. Just leave it alone. Like, he has a voice that would have worked really well.
Yeah, his curious decision making, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Ravindra says Gobotron.
And yes, before anyone says it, I do know GoBots came out before Transformers.
There was something else too. What was that? Oh man, there was a ton of ads back in the day in all the comics, and it was something else. It wasn't GoBots and it wasn't Transformers. It was something else. Do you guys in the chat remember? Do you remember, Ryan?
I don't remember. I mean, there was so many different toys back then. I can rattle off properties like you have no idea. Like I played with Stariors. I played with Sectars. I played with Battle Beasts. Like, there was just like, there's so many obscure things that I played with. I don't remember anything else that was Transformers type thing that was in that vein though.
Yeah, I wish I could remember it right now with the name. And I don't know if it came out before, after, during, whatever the thing was. I remember seeing ads for it in the books and thinking, like, because I was aware of GoBots. I had, like, GoBot puzzles and a coloring book, and the TV show was always on.
Yeah.
With the, what was it, the Challenge of the GoBots
Challenge
or something
of
like
the
that.
GoBot. Yeah.
And Transformers obviously is humongous, but
oh yeah.
no, everyone's saying different things, and these are not it. At least that's not what it's.
Yeah, Diaclone was the version. I remember Robotics. That was Transor Z. I remember those. Those are both Those are both like building type toys. The Robotics and Transor Z were a little bit like where you would actually like build stuff and move stuff around. Diaclone was the Japanese version that basically came over here.
No, not Rock Lords.
Rock Lords was a bit of a spin-off from GoBots.
Yeah. And I'm not thinking Voltron or anything like that.
No.
That's not.
Yeah,
I don't know. We could do the whole show, and everyone's going to list like 30 things, and we're going to be like, well, I guess it wasn't that. But look how many of these things are out there with the changing robot.
It was probably some weird, like, generic version, like Army Corps was for, like, G.I. Joe. It was just like, that it was probably something like that. So
yeah I could swear it had like an M in the beginning of it, but who knows.
I do remember Micronauts, but I don't know if that's what you're thinking of.
No, it's not Micronauts.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's crazy.
We're just gonna keep naming ones.
It'll come to me afterwards. If someone in the chat, if you get it, or if you look it up on Google and you look up like comic book ad for changing robot vehicle or something,
Someone's
and
gonna figure
you might
it out.
find it.
Yeah.
But no, not Zoids. All right. I'll at this point, I'm gonna, if someone says the one, I'm gonna say that's it.
Right.
So in terms of the fantasy aspect of the storytelling, you mentioned like Jim Henson and all that other stuff too. What kind of storytelling aspects from fantasy are you bringing into your own work?
I love world mythologies, so I really pulled a lot from different world mythologies. I was always the kid that would go and get like pick up a book of Greek mythology or Slavic mythology and stuff like that, and really like delve into that. So I have characters that are like the Kitsune, which are Japanese mythology. I have Kirkonos, which is Slavic mythology. I have a character named Marzana, which I learned about her. So she's also Slavic mythology. She's a Polish deity of death, which again sounds dark for an all ages comic, but it's okay. But I learned about her actually watching Mystery Science Theater 3000. I was watching an episode, and all of a sudden they went into this song about different mythological creatures around the world, and I heard the name Marzana. I was like, I've never heard that name before, so I went and looked her up, and there's not a lot of artwork out there for her. There's some, but not a lot. So I was like, oh, cool, we can kind of do what we want with her as far as a look and everything. But yeah, I will dive into any type of mythology, and I thought it would be kind of cool to bring some of these together and kind of have it all work together in the storytelling. So
Yeah, I love that kind of stuff. I don't know if you've listened in on the show before, but sometimes we go deep into talking about mythology and ancient cultures and all that stuff. I love that.
Oh yeah, I absolutely love this stuff. Like I always thought a cool idea for a story would be to take Greek mythology stories and turn it into like a modern day situation where kind of like where you have all the characters named, but they're like it's mob bosses in a sense. So you like Zeus is the main mob boss, and like you kind of manipulate some of the stories so they're a bit more real, but still follows those classic stories. I always thought that would be a fun idea because when you read some of those Greek mythology stories, it sounds like a crime family in a lot of respects.
Oh yeah,
it's like this guy's sleeping with that one, this one's stealing from that one. It's just all that stuff's going on.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. That's the thing where when it comes to mythology and it's all so detailed.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
When they're going about the storytelling and everything else, not to mention everything that those ancient civilizations had accomplished.
Yeah.
Some of which we're still wrapping our head around it today.
Oh yeah.
I find it very hard to use words like primitive. Maybe with some things compared to us, but then there's things that you could look at what we're doing and be like, wow, that's really primitive of us to do that way, or interpret things in that light. I
mean, if you want to, like, if you look at anything like, I know it's the cliched answer, but look at things like the pyramids and stuff like that, or Mayan temples and things like this. Like, how did they build how did they figure all this stuff out to like be able to move these massive pieces of rock and form this thing, and it's perfectly shaped, and it's just like there's nothing primitive about that at all. That takes some actual intelligence.
It would be really difficult, if not near impossible, for us to do it today with what we have.
Right.
Let alone putting ourselves in that time period and saying, okay, well, they had this and this according to what they did. How the hell did they do that?
Yeah, exactly. But they, that's the magic of it, though. It's like that, and that's why, and people can't figure it out, and that's why you hear stuff. And I'm not saying that it didn't happen this way, but like that's why you get people with their conspiracy theories of like, oh, aliens came and did it and things like that, because our mind can't wrap around the idea that somebody figured out a way to do it with like
sometimes
rope
it's more plausible than
than
saying they did it the way that they
did it with logs and ropes. Okay.
yeah. And the thing is, no matter what, someone at some point in time, some culture, some civilization, they learned from them on how to do these things.
Yeah.
Now, how did they learn from whatever and whoever? I have no idea. I don't know if we'll ever know. And even if someone does know, I don't know if they're ever going to spill the beans on it.
Right.
You know, and I don't think within our lifetime. But it's one of those things that, when it comes to the storytelling aspect of it, if anyone looks down on that, it's like, well, if they're talking about your stories in 3,000 or 4,000 years, you let me know.
Right.
Like, we're still talking about those things.
Well,
that's how much they resonated.
Think of like almost, if you look at every culture that's out there, almost all of them have like a flood myth. You know, there's always so it's like, was there actually a flood and people just told stories to explain it, or is it just that we share common thoughts about like how the world would be reshaped if we wanted
and
to?
either one of them's fascinating, and I think
Right.
it's a bit of both, if anything, too.
Yeah. So it's amazing, and I mean, look at also like you have Greek mythology and Norse mythology, and how much they mirror each other, yet it's two different cultures on two different areas of the globe and everything else. But obviously, there was inspirations that traveled and lent themselves to a whole nother type of mythology out there. So
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And Rachel, come on. If you have worked in construction, then you should know how absolutely difficult it is. And it doesn't matter how many humans you squeeze into the area or whatever it may be. Sometimes putting in too many people in a situation like that is disastrous
Right.
for it.
it's
So,
there.
come
There is a
on, Rachel.
there is a reason for the phrase "too many cooks in the kitchen," right?
Yeah, and it's okay if we don't know and if we take our best guesses at it.
Sure.
But I don't know if we ever truly will know. And I think a part of us, we have to kind of be okay with that.
Well, and that's part of the fun too, because it allows people like us to come up with fun stories about like maybe how it happened. So
Yeah. Well, that's the great part about storytelling and it providing an inspiration.
yeah.
Now, were you one of those kids that was always into the unknown in terms of because there's one thing to be
yeah.
into like the mythology side of it, but into the storytelling revolving around sci-fi, the paranormal, supernatural, that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I remember as a kid seeing the commercials for the Time Life books for the Mysteries of the Unknown, and being like, oh, I want to get that book. I want to get that series of books. But I love reading about like urban legends and like if even to this day, as much as I don't. Again, I'm not as big into conspiracy theories. I still love watching stuff about conspiracy theories. I still love watching stuff about cryptids. I'll sit there and watch a show about Bigfoot all day long. I might think the people doing the show are out of their mind, but it's still entertaining and it's still fun to imagine. Like, what if there is actually this creature out there and stuff like that? So
No matter what, too, there's always at least one thing where you're like, I don't know, I really can't explain that.
Right. Even though everything else is being debunked, you're like, yeah, but there's still that one footprint that was out there. Or when it's dealing with supernatural stuff, you're like, okay, they were able to show it was like this vent here and this type of thing there, and it was a shadow cast from this. But what about that one sound that they heard? So
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, no matter what.
yeah.
Now, with the further evolution talk of storytelling,
Yeah.
what are you seeing that's something going on today that you're trying to avoid within your own?
So I didn't do a good job of this in the first issue, but one of the things in trying to tell this, like more of a classic story of like, again, that could fit all ages and everything else is, I'm trying to avoid references. Like I said, I did do a bad job in the first issue because I actually straight out referenced the movie Ghostbusters, but I've definitely found like going back and reading old comics and stuff like that, stuff starts feeling dated because like they're making references to this or that and whatever. And that's kind of why I also went with like this crazy technology stuff in my story, because I didn't want it to just be like cell phones and stuff like that, and someone reads this like 20 years from now and they're like, what's a cell phone, and things like that. So I just went as crazy with the technology, sci-fi stuff as I possibly could, that just wouldn't make any sense. Like there's a car in our first issue that like transforms with all these arms coming out. There's no way all that stuff would fit inside that little car, but in my world it does, and like I'm following the rules of my world. So yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, is just I'm trying not to let my story get dated at some point where it's just like, okay, I want it to be kind of classic, where there's this type of story is going to be fun for anyone at any age at any time period. So
Yeah, I mean, that's a good way of looking at it and approaching it, because you are going to kind of put a timestamp on it.
yeah.
And if you get too referential with it, it kind of becomes a bit of a crutch for the work that you keep on leaning on these different things to be like wink, wink, nod, nod. You get it? You get the joke?
Right, exactly. And it's great if you're telling a story with a certain time period in mind. Like if you're telling a story that takes place in the 80s, then by all means use all those references that you want to use. But that's just not the story I'm trying to tell. And I've told people, I'm like, it's one of those things. I did issue 1. I'm very proud of issue 1. I think it's a lot of fun to read. But if I had a chance to do it all over again, I would write it very differently. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ravindra, Eastman and Laird did Daredevil references. I would say that it's more like they did satire and a bit of parody with Daredevil.
I agree. And not only that, but like someone can read Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles today and not know Daredevil and still enjoy it. It's not like you need to know Daredevil. If you do, you get those little nods to things, of course.
Yeah, the hand, the foot.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you don't, you're still reading a story that you can totally enjoy and totally immerse yourself in. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. So when you're diving into your storytelling and you're getting creative about it, what do you start with first? Do you start with, well, at least how do things come to you? Do the characters come to you, or does the story come to you?
It's mostly characters at first, and that's one of my favorite things is creating characters. And then I think about like how do they fit in the story? Do they fit in the story, or is this a character idea I might want to use for something else later or on something else? So to give you an idea with Stealth Hammer itself, and this is the part that always cracks people up, is the name Stealth Hammer is actually my wife's real life nickname. So she got the
You're
nickname.
Gonna have to explain that one.
I usually have to, yes. So the short version of it is she's a graphic designer. She worked at an ad agency. The boss submitted like multiple ideas to some clients, and she's like, well, can I submit one? And he's like, sure. Well, she submitted an idea. The client chose hers. So the next time he sent out something saying, anyone want to submit ideas, he said, and watch out for Stealth. So her nickname became Stealth for a while because of that. Then she worked at another place where she was in charge of like brand compliance. So she had to like dictate like which fonts could be used, what colors have to be used, stuff like that. Her boss is like, okay, you're the one that's got to lay the hammer down here, so I'm going to call you Hammer. Well, she's like, I already got a nickname of Stealth. So she just put the two together and became Stealth Hammer. So we always joked like this would make a great superhero name, and we would start talking about stuff like that. And I had her drawn as a superhero one year, and for her birthday, and gave her that to her. And like physically seeing it, I was like, okay, maybe we could actually do something with this. This might be something fun to do. And as soon as I thought that, I started having ideas just flood my mind. But I get inspired from like so many things. I could see a photo, like just a picture of something and go, ooh, that'd be a cool place. Like when I thought of finally doing this story, I was in the middle of a shopping plaza in like Florida, and I had my phone with me and I was taking pictures of mannequins in stores because I thought the clothes that they were wearing would be something that my character would wear. Because that's how much I was starting to like kind of develop her personality, her style, and all that type of stuff. And I sent those photos to my artist to be like, here's her style. This is what she would wear, and this is what her personality is like, and stuff like that. So,
Brian was known as the Velvet Hammer for his drink mixing abilities.
Nice. Maybe that's a character I can like bring in from an alternate reality or something like that.
Now, when you're doing a project like this, you're on issue 3, so you're not necessarily a newcomer or anything like that. And again, the link, if those are in the chat want to check it out, is in the description of the show. We'll show it in a couple minutes here. But what has been some of the hurdles that you've faced over the course of these 3 issues?
The biggest hurdle has been having a colorist every single time. Because I've been very blessed to work with some amazingly talented people, and if anyone knows like colorists and stuff like that, you'll recognize some of the names I'm going to mention. But like our first issue, I had Ross Hughes. He's worked on stuff like Justice League, Green Lantern, stuff like that. And I got his name through somebody I knew through doing the podcast and everything else, and he was like, yeah, happy to do it, the issue here for you. So he worked on it, did an amazing job. Absolutely loved the colors he went with and everything. And then when we went to go do issue 2, I reached out to him to see if he'd want to do it again, and he's like, well, I kind of retired from doing full issues. I'm still doing like little one-offs here when it comes to like a cover or something like that, but he said I've kind of retired from doing it full time. I was like, oh yeah, that's fair. So then I reached out to someone I actually knew, again through podcasting, Chris Sotomayor, and Chris is definitely someone known in the industry. He's done work with like Batman and Spider-Man and just basically any character you can name, he's probably done coloring for that character. I knew him from he did some work with G.I. Joe, so like I got to know him because of that. So I asked him if he'd be interested, and he was like, sure. Well, he did 4 pages for the Kickstarter plus the cover, and then when we funded the Kickstarter, he was like, I'm really sorry, I'm just overwhelmed with work right now, and he says I can't finish it here for you. And I was like, I understand, it's totally fine. So I found a new colorist, which was Luis Delgado, and he's been on like The Last Ronin and stuff like that for TMNT, what we were mentioning earlier. And he did the issue, did an amazing job. So we go into 3rd issue, and all these people have loved the experience. Like, they all thought it was a lot of fun to work on. It's just they get overwhelmed with work, and my thing is something I'm only coming out with like once a year, where they're working on stuff that's coming out every month, and so they got to take that consistent work. So I totally understand it. So he was just like, I've got like 30 some projects I'm already lined up for right now. So he says, I know I said I would do it, but he's I can't do the 3rd issue. So then I found Heather Breckel, who is our colorist for this issue. So she's worked on like My Little Pony and Rise of the TMNT and things like that. So definitely some amazing talent, and it's always been interesting to see the different art color styles and how that makes a difference sometimes with the art and everything, but still following like that bright, vibrant colors that we've kind of established for the title and everything. So yeah, I'm already thinking like, okay, issue 4 we're gonna need to find a new colorist. So that's kind of been the hurdles we've been having.
Has it been the same artist the whole time, the interior artist?
Yeah, Joel Jackson. He is. So we did start off with Alexandra Scott. She did a lot of the concept art for the characters, and she did help me do like a 5-page story. We did our first Kickstarter. It was not successful at that time, and then when we went to go launch it again, she's like, she kind of was taking a step away from a lot of stuff. So I had to find new artists. I found Joel Jackson, and he is down in Columbus. I'm in Cleveland, Ohio area. He's down in Columbus, Ohio. Met him through a mutual connection, and he's been the artist on the title ever since. And he is insane, to put it mildly. He fits so much into a page. So that's like the first page right there of our 3rd issue. We always do like this big splash page to open up an issue, and he just goes to town. He fits so much in there without it being bogged down. Like, there's just a lot to look at on every page that he does.
Nice.
Yeah, I wanted someone that was going to have like this cartoony type style. He obviously, you could tell he has a little bit of like a manga influence to some of his artwork and everything, but I also wanted somebody that could really draw details. I got Chris Ominga, who did our variant cover right there. He's had work that's been with DC that's been turned into statues. He's done some work with Disney. Brian Shearer does our back cover, so I fit as much artwork and stuff into an issue as I can, so the back cover even has original artwork on it. So
very nice.
Yeah.
Who's the little gnome dude?
So that is Ari the elf. He was inspired by a trip that my wife and I got to take out to Iceland, and elves are very much a part of the culture there. And he's my Yoda type character, and this issue is all focused on him. So issue 1 was all about Stealth Hammer's origin. She gets her powers, she fights the bad guys, kind of throwback to like Golden Age storytelling. Issue 2 was about her finding out her legacy, that her family's been part of this legacy of guardians and protectors. Issue 3 is a flashback story of Ari the elf and how he became part of the story. Because we do see him in issue 1, we see him more in issue 2, but they're on their way to Iceland, and to kind of help pass the time by, rather than just issue 3, boom, they're in Iceland, I decided to have Ari the Elf tell Stealth Hammer, her name's Jamie, to how he came about being sent on his mission and what he did in his adventures to finally meet up with where we see him in the story.
Nice. Yeah, I dig the look of him.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely love him. And you can see him, he's right over my shoulder here. That's actually what he was inspired by, the little plushie that I got in Iceland. So,
okay.
So I brought him home with me, and I'm like, this is gonna be my character right here. So
look at that. You got built-in merchandise.
Exactly. We have Ari the Elf on store shelves everywhere.
Yeah, look at that. Man. Yeah, I really I dig the look of him. I like this is the cover, you said?
That's the cover, yeah. So he does fight some like mugger type characters that are dressed up as like luchador wrestler types, and so we decided with the cover we were going to have some fun and actually throw him in an actual ring with those two guys. So it's a little bit of a play on what actually happens in the issue, and then he threw all the other characters that have been in the first two issues in the background there. So
nice.
Yeah.
Wow, very nice, man.
Yeah.
So in terms of this project, would you say that you have to read everything in order, or is this a series that's kind of like the comics of old where you could kind of jump in wherever?
Yeah, so I would say especially this issue, you could just jump into this issue and be brought up to speed as to kind of what's going on, because again, it's a flashback story, so it's pretty self-contained. You will definitely get more out of it if you read the first two issues, and you can get the first two issues in this campaign, so we do make all three issues available for people. So we have like a starter pack, but we also have the first two issues in the add-on area as well. So if you pick a reward that doesn't come with the first two issues and you want them, you can add them. But it's something where I refer to my writing as a little bit like Claremontian, so like Chris Claremont, how he would always throw these little nuggets in there that he would then revisit later. I do a lot of that in my storytelling. So in issue 1, like I said, you read the story, there's little hints of things, and then issue 2, that world grows a lot more. And then in this third issue, we actually see things that we saw in issue 1, but now we're seeing them, and in issue 2, but we're seeing it from Ari the Elf's perspective. So we kind of learn certain things that happen. Like an example is in issue 1, Jamie's dad isn't home. She's bringing her boyfriend home to visit her dad, to meet her dad, and he's not home. And I had people go, why wasn't he home? If I was bringing my boyfriend home to meet my dad, he'd be home. And I was like, trust me, there's a reason. Well, in issue 3, we find out why he wasn't home. So there's stuff like that gets revisited from the first 2 issues. But I will say, like, reading, if you were to read this all by itself, it's just a fun, like, hilarious time reading this elf character that's on this adventure with magic and fantasy stuff going on. So
it's tough when you're creating a story like that, you know. You want things to have weight.
Yeah.
And gravitas, you know. You can't just rush into everything and overwhelm the reader, because then they're going to be like, oh my lord, this is just too much. This is ridiculous. I don't know who the hell's who, you know. Everyone's only getting like 2 panels.
Right. Well, and that was the thing. Like, again, I'm going back to stories that I grew up with, whereas I love stories like Alice in Wonderland, Wizard of Oz, like I said, Dark Crystal, where you start off with just a few characters, and then you just start growing the world out and growing it bigger and bigger. And by the time you get to the end of it, it's this big epic saga with so many characters, but you know who all of them are, because you've been slowly introduced to who all of them are. And they've all become part of this story that you're enjoying, rather than, like you said, throwing 50 characters into one issue and you're like, I don't remember the name of any of them at this point. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm a fan of not a story being a slow burn. You know, I like putting a whole complete story in each issue, but there's always going to be those details that you put out there, and someone might even think like, oh, that seems like a plot hole. Yeah.
One of the things, if you scroll down a bit, there's a reward that we did for this one in particular, where it's a big epic battle scene. It's a little bit farther down. I'll tell you where. But it's in black and white, and it's right there.
Oh,
So,
okay.
So this was the early pencil artwork. So we are doing a limited print for this Kickstarter. It'll be numbered and signed by myself and the artist, and it's gonna be 11 by 17 print on real high quality like stock paper, cardstock type paper. And what I did was I gave Joel a list of, like I said, he throws a lot into a page, and he outdid himself on this thing. I said, here's all the heroes, here's all the villains, here's what I want. I want a big epic battle scene, kind of like Rocky 3 style, where at the end of Rocky 3 you had Apollo Creed and Rocky just about to hit each other, and then it freeze frames. I was like, that's what I want. I want the just about to take on each other and freeze frame right there. And he threw in everybody in the kitchen sink into this huge, massive thing. It will be fully inked and colored, so it'll be a beautiful thing to see.
Wow, let me see if I can I don't know if I can increase the
Yeah.
size too much more than that, but that's crazy.
If you do back it, I did send out an update that has some more closer up shots of this particular piece. So but yeah, oh my god, he fit so much in there. I had no idea what. So that was a big thing that I learned from doing issue 1 to doing issue 3. All the way through, was issue 1 I was still getting to know Joel, so I was like starting to learn his art style, what he was good at, what he likes to do, and everything else. Once I was done with issue 1, I told him, I was like, you're in trouble now, because now I know what you can do. And then it was just like, let's see how much stuff I can throw at him before he breaks. And he is not.
It's like
he is
a
not,
torture test
right,
for your artist.
He is not broken yet. Like he's like, yeah, give me more. So
Nice.
it's been awesome. Yeah.
Good. Well, something like this too. You said it's 11 by 17. It's going to be on like a cardstock. How are you
Yeah.
shipping that?
So I'm definitely gonna be getting some like nice. Very likely I'll put it inside like a plastic sleeve, so I'll have the backing and protection for it. But it'll be flat, and I'll put it in cardboard and ship it out. So
Yeah, usually I just cut it up, and I'm like, here's a puzzle too.
that's another way to go.
Surprise puzzle. You didn't see that coming, guys.
But they do make nice mailers. I actually just got something from somebody that was in like a nice cardboard mailer that kept it flat and everything. So
Nice.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's
want
always.
this to be a nice piece for people, so I'll definitely make sure it's shipped in a well protected piece there. So
Very cool.
yeah.
Yeah, so you got the 3 issues available on the campaign. It looks like in digital it's 15, and
Right.
in physical you get the digital too.
Yep. So you'll get
So you get both.
You'll
for
get
20.
both for 20 plus obviously a bit of shipping. You'll get all 3 issues, cover A's, and then digital copies of all 3 issues as well.
Very nice. And it looks like you are, what, 170 away?
Yeah, that's might be a little deceiving because
Oh, no.
well, here's the reason why. I don't know if you've heard of this happening for some people out there, but I heard about this, and I've been aware of it, is that there's been some people out there that create accounts and then they back Kickstarters at really high amounts.
Oh, Kickstarter. Yeah.
And then like
That's why I left Kickstarter like 8 years ago.
and then the day before, usually about the day it's going to end, they back out.
Yeah.
And then you're under your goal. So far, most of our backers have been like amazing, but I did get a backer recently that I'm skeptical that it's a true person. So, because it was like a very high dollar amount. So
Yeah, I'm getting flashbacks to when we were doing Kickstarters to raise money for the film we were doing. And it was like the last day, it was right there, and it was like $5,000 we got. And
man.
people just backing out because that's what you could do on Kickstarter. It's nice and easy.
Yeah, so I will say we are still very close, though. So realistically, we're probably about like 90 to 95% of our way there. So we are still very close. There's only just, like I said, there's one person that they could still be a real person for all I know. Like, again, I don't know. I have nothing to prove it. There was just some red flags where I was like, maybe this might not be a real person. But we are extremely close. We have, like you said, 5 days left. And we're pushing hard on it. So a couple things. Another thing to put out there too is Joel will actually, there's still some spots left for this. We do have a commission level available as well. So Joel will actually draw any character you want, and he does amazing work. We have some sample images in the story there as well of stuff that he's done. So for, I think it's 125 we have it at. It's that one right there. You'll get all the stuff for the combo pack, and like you'll get both covers and all that type of stuff. Plus you get him to draw an original piece for you. So.
Oh, very nice.
So yeah.
Yes, with 5 days left, I mean, even with a couple of people that may drop out at the last second, you should be okay.
Yeah, I told everyone that worked on this, I'm going to will this thing into existence if I have to.
Yeah, well, that's what you got to do sometime.
Right, exactly. So
with it being a crowdfunder, have you only been sticking to Kickstarter, or have you given thought to going to other places, even if it's a second chance sort of thing?
Yeah, I have thought about going with some other things. We did start with Kickstarter. We kind of been, we kind of established a lot of our basis there. But yeah, I'm definitely looking at some, especially with some of the things that have happened recently with this one and everything, those type of events. Like, I really don't want to have to face stuff like that. I want people to know that they're going to get something, and that it's going to be good quality. And that's the thing too. Like, I always make it very clear to audiences out there, like, all the money that we make from this, it's going to my creative team, and it's going towards printing the issue. I make no money from the Kickstarter. This is a passion project that I absolutely love. I just believe in paying creators what they're worth. So this is to take care of Joel and Heather and my letterer, which is Dave Sharp, and just making sure that they've all been paid for the work that they're doing. So.
Well, hopefully one day that changes for you.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, look at that. I made money.
Right, exactly.
Profit.
That's part of the dream and the goal, right?
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
See, I don't know if you've heard of these guys, but Fund My Comic is a new one. And that's a pretty good one, too. You want to check that out and
for sure.
see what's what, and maybe get a second chance campaign on there, too.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting because this kind of stuff, it doesn't seem like there's audiences for it, but it's like anything else. Some people prefer to shop at this store over that store, or
yeah, I know people have their preferences, absolutely.
Yeah.
So. But to give I'll give the elevator pitch of what the story even is, because people are probably like, okay, well, what is Stealth Hammer? So the elevator pitch is that it's an all ages superhero adventure that takes place in a world of high tech gadgetry and supernatural mythology. So I relate it to like Stargirl and Miss Marvel in a world of Mega Man meets Jim Henson's Creature Shop. So.
Right, very nice. Yeah, it says that, let's see here. It says, we discovered the origin in the first issue. We learn about her legacy in the second issue. In this new chapter, we flash back to the story of her new companion, Ari the Elf, and his journey to become part of Stealth Hammer's destiny.
Yep.
So what is, now you let me know what the name or the origin there for Stealth Hammer is, but in the context of the story, what does Stealth Hammer mean?
Yeah, so basically she names herself that because her powers are she has fists like sledgehammers, and she can turn invisible. So her dad worked on her dad was an inventor, and he worked on a lot of different government projects. An accident happens, which was also a little bit of sabotage, and a little bit of destiny happens as well, of course. And she kind of absorbed some of the powers of some of the tech that was in the room at the time. So that's why she has like these glowing fists that basically, like I said, they have the strength and power of a sledgehammer, and then there was stealth technology in there, so she kind of just pieced that together and named herself Stealth Hammer. And
can she fly? It looks like in this image she can.
She can't, but that was just artistic licensing.
Okay.
But yeah, no, she's outside of that, she's a perfectly normal human being. Like, she has same type of limitations we would all have and everything. So one of the things that I did with her, especially because I always hated it when a superhero would gain powers and all of a sudden they just knew how to fight. Like, that just never made sense to me. So in the very first issue, in the early pages, we see that she's coming out of a judo studio, and she has like a student that she like says goodbye to. So now, like, without saying anything, we've learned that she not only knows some martial arts, but she's good enough to teach other people. So like, it was a way for me to go, okay, my character has some fighting ability before she even gets these powers. So
yeah, nice touch there.
Yeah.
It's just simple little moments like that, you know.
Yeah. And then another fun thing was, like we were talking about inspiration earlier, like in the first Kickstarter, we did have it where you could back it and actually be in the issue. And some of those characters now are ongoing characters in my story. So
Oh, no way.
yeah, so like we had a guy named a buddy of mine named Rock who backed it and to be in the issue, and he wanted to be the. I told him we were gonna have a bus driver. Like they knew what type of characters there were. There was gonna be like 2 police officers. There was gonna be a bus driver. There was gonna be a judo student and stuff like that. And so he picked. He wanted to be the bus driver. So we have Rock the bus driver. He appears in the first issue. He's going to appear in this issue as well because again, Ari the elf. We see some of the story from his perspective. He actually meets the bus driver. So we have that. I had a couple agents in there. And those have now become reoccurring characters, and there's kind of some mythological stuff behind them.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, so like some of these people that I know now are like these ongoing characters, and they really have worked for the story and everything. So
that's great.
The judo student has been in all 3 issues. She's we see her at the beginning of the first issue. She appears in a police scene in the second issue, and she's talking. So this is another one of those payoffs where like in the second issue we see her in a police station and she's telling the officers like, you don't understand, there's this mugging going on, and there's this little gnome guy came out of nowhere. And so in this third issue we actually see that whole scene that she's referring to in the second issue. So
nice.
Yeah.
What do you have planned for the 4th? You have that
Yeah, I have at least the first 6 issues completely planned out. So
nice.
Fourth issue is we get back to now they're arriving in Iceland because that's where they were heading when this third issue story is being told. That's where we kind of left things off in the second issue. She's looking to meet up with the Council of Elders so she can get training to be this protector, this guardian that she's destined to be. So we go on a bit of an adventure in Iceland, and it's very helpful that I was there, so I kind of like know the landscape and everything. And then the 5th issue is, and there'll be there'll be a lot of action in that 4th issue. The 5th issue, it's kind of like one of those campfire scenes, and it's gonna be another flashback story. So in the story, first 2 issues, we find out that her grandmother disappeared like 5 years ago. And her grandmother, we also find out, also had superpowers because, again, it's been a family legacy situation and of being protectors. And not everyone gets powers, but some do. And like her dad does not have powers, but he's super intelligent. He's able to invent things and everything. So, but she finds out her grandmother had superpowers and disappeared 5 years ago. So her grandmother left her journal. And so in the 5th issue, it's like this campfire scene where she decides, I'm going to read through the journal, and we get a flashback to an early adventure of her grandmother. And her grandmother's like my Indiana Jones type character. She's like this archaeologist that goes into tombs and things like that. So I get to have some fun with that. And then the 6th issue is her reaching the Council of Elders, and we have some fun with that. And then there's like a really there's 2 cliffhangers that end the 6th issue. So that's like our first full arc then.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
Are there plans in the future to put like a trade together or anything like that?
Yeah, once I get through the first 6 issues, I absolutely want to do a trade, and we'll probably put like another little short story in there to give people something a little extra that get the trade. But yeah, absolutely. Especially because with it being all ages, it seems like nowadays graphic novels are really the thing that kids will gravitate a lot more to because they get like a full story going on. So I feel like if we put this together in a trade, we'll probably not market it as much as a trade of 6 issues, but try to really put it together as a full story that's in that trade format.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Man. Well, best of luck to you on it. If you guys want to check it out, it's on Kickstarter right now. This is Stealth Hammer, issue 3, and it's at I'm just going to read it. It's at 6,330.
Yeah.
Even though, there's a little bit of that Kickstarter weirdness.
Yeah,
you got 5 days left.
6,000. We might be closer to like around 6,000. So again, we're very, very close. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I hope it is a real person.
I do
not
too.
Offended by any of this.
Yeah, I hope so too. So no, and that's the thing. It could still be a real person. There was just, like I said, there was some red flags. I'm like, I don't know, but if it is a real person, I hope they did that because they just loved what they were seeing. So
Fantastic. Well, yeah, I'm gonna hold out hope for you with that.
Thank
And
you.
you got 5 days left, so
Yeah.
I'm pretty confident you'll reach your goal.
Yeah, I am too.
So if you guys want to check it out again, the link is in the description of the show. So before we say goodbye, Ryan, where can they find you?
They can find me on all the social media. So Stealth Hammer does have we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. We're on Instagram, and then Stealth Hammer does have a website. It's stealthhammer.com, and you can find all of the things I just mentioned. The Kickstarter, all the social medias, and everything is there. You can learn more about the characters. You can actually read the origin story about where the inspiration for the story came from, all that type of stuff. And we're going to continue expanding on the website as well. I'm going to actually start writing short stories that will go on there that take place in the Stealth Hammer universe. That will just be prose short stories that people can read for free. So,
All right, great. Well, thank you so much for being on here today and for having this conversation with me.
I appreciate you
it.
having me on. It's been a blast.
No problem, man. Everybody in the chat, thank you guys so much as well for being here. Your questions, your comments, all that good stuff, always appreciated. If you guys enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. Again, make sure you are subscribed. YouTube's been a little bit wonky. And if you are subscribed, ring the bell for notifications so this way you do get notified when we go live, which we do almost every night, about 5 or 6 nights a week we do this. I'll be back on Friday on here. But tomorrow I'm going to be on the Alterna Comics channel at 9 o'clock. We're going to be doing that launch stream for Dave Lucarelli's Tinseltown Second Chance campaign, and among other things too. So make sure to join me there. Again, that's the Alterna Comics YouTube channel. But other than that, and yeah, thank you so much, Brian, putting that link for the Twitter right there.
Nice.
Other than that, thank you guys so much for being here. Ryan, again, thank you. All the best of luck with your book and everything else. And I'll be seeing the rest of you guys soon. Until then, everybody have a great night and an even better tomorrow. I'll be seeing you soon. All the best.